It was late spring when the message arrived. The trees in my backyard had begun to burst with new leaves, and the nights were warmer, longer. Spring was always a time of change, and this year was no different, but something about it felt off. It was the kind of feeling you get when you know something's wrong but can't quite put your finger on it. The message came through on my phone, an unexpected text from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something told me to open it. A simple message, nothing more than a few words. "Hey, are you still interested in working at Camp Briarwood this summer?" I paused. Camp Briarwood. I hadn't thought about that place in years. It was a remote camp in the mountains of Pennsylvania, where I'd spent one summer working as a counselor during college. I hadn't been back since. It wasn't the kind of place you go to for a relaxing retreat. The camp had a reputation for being isolated, a little eerie, and, as some locals would whisper, a little dangerous. The message was from Jenna, the camp director. I recognized her name instantly. She'd been the one who hired me all those years ago, and though we hadn't stayed in touch, I remembered her well. The girl who had a soft spot for the camp's history and the strange stories that surrounded it. She'd been there since she was a kid, and I'd always admired how connected she was to the place. But I also remembered the weird vibes I'd gotten back then, the unspoken tension between the camp's history and the people who worked there. Curiosity got the best of me, and I typed a quick reply. "I didn't know you were still working there. What's going on?" A few minutes later, her response came through. "We're short on staff for the upcoming season. I know it's last minute, but I thought you might want to come back. It'll be just like old times. The camp needs people who understand the place. Plus, we could really use someone with your experience. We're starting early this year, so let me know if you're interested." I couldn't help but feel a pang of nostalgia. Working at Briarwood had been one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Sure, the camp had always been a bit off the dense woods, the way the place seemed to swallow up sound, but there was something magnetic about it. The camaraderie, the kids, the evenings around the campfire, it was all so vivid in my memory. I typed back, "Sounds tempting, I'll think about it." Within seconds, she responded, "Let me know soon, we're really short on help. Trust me, it'll be a great summer, you won't regret it." I thought about it for a moment. I had just gotten out of a long, exhausting year of work, and a summer at the camp could be a perfect escape. Something about her tone, though, made me hesitate. There was a sense of urgency in her words, as though she needed me there, not just for the help, but for something else, something I couldn't quite place. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovered over the keyboard, torn between curiosity and caution. Was this just a random request, or was there something more to it? Was this the universe telling me to go back to Briarwood, or was it a mistake I'd regret? In the end, the decision came down to one simple thing. I didn't have anything else to do, so I tapped out a response. "All right, I'll do it. When do I need to be there?" Her reply was quick. "Great, the first group arrives in 3 days. Can't wait to see you again." That was it. I didn't think twice after that. I packed my things, told my friends I'd be gone for the summer, and made my way to the camp. It felt strange driving out to the middle of nowhere, the roads getting thinner and the trees taller with every mile. I didn't even realize how long it had been since I last made the trip. But as I approached the turnoff to Briarwood, something in the air changed. It wasn't the temperature, or the light, it was just a feeling. The camp was surrounded by dense forests, and as I got closer, the trees seemed to close in around me. There was no sound, not even birds. I shook it off. It was just my imagination. After all, I was only going back to work, right? Nothing had changed. As I pulled up to the entrance, the camp came into view, a weathered collection of old cabins, a main lodge that looked like it had seen better days, and the lake shimmering in the distance. It was the same as I remembered it. But as I parked and stepped out of my car, the unease I'd felt earlier came rushing back, stronger this time. The air was thick, heavy, and the woods felt like they were watching me. I ignored it. I had a job to do, and I was going to do it. The door to the lodge swung open, and there she was, Jenna. This story seems to be getting scarier. doesn't it? If you want more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps create even more scary for you. Jenna looked almost exactly the same as I remembered, that familiar, warm smile, the long brown hair that she always wore in a loose ponytail, and the same faded camp t-shirt she'd worn when I'd first met her. But there was something different about her, a certain stiffness in her posture, a tightness around her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. She greeted me with a hug, though it felt more like an obligation than genuine warmth. "Hey, it's good to see you again," she said, stepping back and eyeing me up and down as if checking if I still fit the Briarwood spirit. I smiled back, trying to shake off the strange feeling creeping up my spine. "It's good to be here. Looks like the place hasn't changed much." "Yeah, not much has," Jenna replied with a forced chuckle. "You remember where everything is, right?" I nodded. Even though it had been years, Briarwood was one of those places that you never truly forget, even if you want to. The winding paths through the trees, the smell of the campfire that would burn in the pit by the lake, the old mess hall where kids would gather for meals, and of course, the cabins, the aging, creaky buildings that always felt like they were on the edge of falling apart. Jenna led me inside the lodge, and I immediately noticed that it felt quieter than I remembered. There were only a few people bustling around the main room, camp staff unloading boxes and preparing for the upcoming season. The place felt strangely empty for the time of year when Briarwood should have been full of energy and excitement. "Don't worry about the silence," Jenna said, as if reading my mind. "We're just starting to get everything together. The kids will be here in a few days, and things will get loud quickly." I nodded, but something about her words didn't sit right with me. "How's everything been going here? You mentioned you were short on staff." Jenna hesitated for a moment, her eyes flicking to the window before quickly darting back to me. "It's been fine, just, hard to find good help out here, but we're getting by." I wasn't sure if it was the way she said it or the look on her face, but it didn't feel like the full truth. Something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. We spent the next hour going through the basics, where the supplies were, the layout of the camp, and some of the new procedures for the upcoming season. I was introduced to the few staff members who were already there, mostly younger, fresh-faced people who seemed excited to be back. I wasn't sure if they were just eager or if they didn't know what they were getting into, but they greeted me with wide smiles and more than a few awkward glances. By the time we finished the tour, it was late afternoon. The sun was starting to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the camp. Jenna offered to show me to my cabin, which was the same one I had stayed in all those years ago, Cabin 3. As we walked toward it, I felt the familiar weight of the woods pressing in around me. The trees seemed darker than they had been before, and the air felt thick with something I couldn't quite place. "This is your cabin for the summer," Jenna said, unlocking the door. "It's got everything you'll need, and it's close to the campfire circle. I know you liked being near that last time." I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. Something about the way she said it made me uneasy. "I appreciate it," I said, stepping inside. The room smelled musty, just like it had before, a mix of old wood and pine. The bed was still there, the same old metal frame and faded quilt. The windows creaked when I opened them, and the view outside was exactly as I remembered, the dense forest stretching out beyond the camp. Jenna lingered at the doorway for a moment, her eyes scanning the room, before she spoke again. "I'll leave you to get settled," she said, her voice suddenly quieter. "But remember, if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to come to me. We're all a family here, you know?" I nodded, though her words felt more like a warning than a comfort. She seemed to hesitate again, glancing at the trees outside, before finally turning to leave. As she walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just the camp's isolation or the weird vibe from Jenna, it was the woods themselves. There was something unsettling about them, something ancient. I closed the door behind me and sat down on the bed, letting out a long breath. I'd been here for less than a day, and already, I could feel the tension creeping in. The memories of that summer all those years ago flooded back. The stories we'd heard about the camp, about the disappearances, the strange occurrences. the things that didn't add up. I had told myself I wasn't going to think about any of that. This was just a summer job, nothing more. But the longer I stayed here, the harder it was to ignore that nagging feeling in the back of my mind. The camp had always felt like it was holding something back, a secret. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I was about to uncover it. The evening passed without incident, but the unease remained. As night fell, I wandered around the camp, trying to shake off the strange feeling that clung to me. The woods seemed alive in a way I couldn't explain. The rustling of leaves in the breeze, the occasional snap of a twig underfoot, the distant hoot of an owl, it all felt too deliberate, like the forest was aware of my every step. The few staff members who were around had retired to their cabins early, leaving the camp silent and abandoned. The air was colder now, the darkness stretching long across the paths that led between the cabins. I made my way to the campfire circle, thinking it might calm my nerves, but when I arrived, I found the fire pit already set up, yet no fire. It was just another detail that didn't sit right. Why would the staff have prepared the pit but not started the fire? Was it some kind of tradition? I shook the thought from my head. It was probably just an oversight. As I sat down on one of the benches, I noticed something I hadn't before, a small, weathered sign near the fire pit. I stood up to inspect it and found it was covered in old, faded writing, barely legible. The letters were scratched out, almost as if someone had tried to erase them. The only words I could make out were, "Don't go near the forest at night." I frowned and leaned in closer. The writing was smudged, as if it had been scribbled hastily. The sign didn't belong there, at least not in such an odd place, and it didn't make sense. Why would someone need to warn campers about the forest at night? It was just woods, after all, nothing special about it. I turned back to the lodge, feeling a little unsettled. The night seemed to stretch out forever, and the shadows in the trees felt deeper than they had before. My cabin was only a short walk away, but as I made my way back, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I stepped inside my cabin and locked the door behind me, the silence pressing in from all sides. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to shake off the anxiety that had taken hold. I could hear the distant sound of water lapping against the shore of the lake, the occasional creak of the cabin's old wood. The night felt like it was closing in. I didn't know what it was. Maybe it was the quiet, or maybe it was the weight of the place itself, but sleep didn't come easily. The darkness seemed to press against the walls, like it was trying to get in. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind that rattled the windows, made my pulse race. At some point, I must have drifted off, because I was suddenly jolted awake. A loud banging noise from outside had snapped me out of sleep, my heart pounding in my chest. I shot up in bed, listening. The camp was dead silent except for that one sound. The noise came again, louder this time. It was coming from the woods, a thudding sound, like something large was moving through the trees. I hesitated. My first instinct was to stay inside, to ignore it and hope it would go away, but something told me that would be the wrong choice. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside, carefully closing the door behind me. The night air was colder now, a sharp breeze cutting through my jacket. The woods were still, too still, but that noise, it kept coming, echoing through the trees. I walked toward the source of the sound, my footsteps muffled by the thick layer of fallen leaves. The trees seemed to close in around me, the shadows stretching out, thick and oppressive. The beam of my flashlight flickered, casting odd angles on the bark of the trees, making the forest seem alive in a way that wasn't normal. As I moved deeper into the woods, the thudding noise grew louder. It was rhythmic, almost mechanical, and then, just as I was about to reach the clearing where the noise was coming from, it stopped. I froze. The silence that followed was suffocating. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of the forest. It was an unnatural stillness, as if everything had stopped moving, holding its breath. I turned around slowly, scanning the woods with my flashlight. Nothing, no movement, no sign of life. My heart raced as I took a cautious step back. That's when I saw it, just for a moment. Out of the corner of my eye, a figure, standing still between two trees, watching me. I snapped my head toward the figure, but it was gone. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing. Who was that? What had I just seen? I didn't wait around to find out. My legs moved before I could think, and I bolted back to the camp, my breath coming in short gasps as I ran. I didn't stop until I was inside my cabin, door locked once again. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing, but the fear didn't subside. I hadn't imagined that figure. I knew I hadn't. Something or someone had been watching me. The rest of the night passed in fitful, restless sleep, but the moment I woke up, the sun was barely up, and I knew I had to talk to Jenna. I had to find out what was going on here, because whatever it was, I was starting to think it was much worse than I had ever imagined. The sun had barely crept over the horizon when I found myself pacing in front of my cabin, waiting for Jenna. I couldn't shake the images from last night, the thudding noises, the fleeting glimpse of the figure in the trees. I had to know what was going on. I didn't care if I was stepping on toes or sounding paranoid. I needed answers. As soon as Jenna arrived at the lodge that morning, I found her walking across the camp, her face as impassive as it had been the day before. She was carrying a clipboard, looking every bit the part of the camp director, but the stiffness in her posture was undeniable. "Hey, Jenna," I called out as I approached her, trying to sound casual, though I could feel the tension in my voice. She glanced up, her expression softening when she saw me. "Hey, good morning, how's everything going? Settling in okay?" I forced a smile, but my mind was elsewhere. "Actually, I need to talk to you about something. Something weird happened last night." Her smile faltered for just a second, but she recovered quickly. "Weird how?" I was out by the campfire circle, and then I went for a walk in the woods," I began, my voice shaky, "and I heard these strange noises. I thought it was maybe an animal at first, but then it started to sound different, like something moving, like it wasn't natural, and when I went to check it out, I saw something, a figure, standing in the trees. It was watching me." Jenna's face went pale, and for a split second, I saw something flash in her eyes, something almost like fear, but it was gone just as quickly, replaced by her usual calm demeanor. "Listen," she said in a low voice, looking over her shoulder to make sure no one else was close by. "I know this place can feel strange, especially at night, but there's nothing out there. It's just your imagination playing tricks on you." I wanted to believe her, really, I did, but something about her tone, the way she avoided looking directly at me, made me feel like she was hiding something. "Jenna, it didn't feel like my imagination," I pressed. "I saw something, someone. I'm not crazy. You can't just tell me there's nothing to it." She sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I'm not saying you're crazy, but there are things about this place, things that are hard to explain. Look, just stick around a little longer, okay? The kids will be here soon, and things will get busy. It won't feel so strange once you get into the rhythm of it." Her words felt like an attempt to dismiss me, but there was a hint of desperation in them, as if she wanted me to ignore it, to forget. I didn't buy it. "I'm not asking you to explain everything, but just tell me one thing, Jenna," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "What's really going on here? What's with the warnings, the strange stories, and the weird vibe around this place?" Jenna's eyes darted around again, her gaze lingering on the forest behind me. For a long moment, she didn't speak. I could tell she was weighing something, debating whether to tell me the truth or keep me in the dark. Finally, she sighed. "You don't understand. It's not something we talk about openly, not to the staff, not to anyone who's new." I leaned forward, my heart racing. "What happened here?" Jenna hesitated, looking conflicted. "What is it?" Her fingers tightened around the clipboard as if she were trying to hold herself together. "The woods, they're dangerous. There's a reason the signs are there. There's a reason people go missing around here." I felt my stomach drop. I wasn't sure what I had expected her to say, but this wasn't it. "Missing? You mean like disappearances?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, her expression grim. "There are things that have happened here over the years that we can't explain. People, kids, counselors have vanished, without a trace. Sometimes it's just one person, sometimes more. It's like the woods take them." I shook my head in disbelief. "You're saying the woods?" take people? That's insane." "It's not insane," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's the truth, but it's not something we talk about to scare anyone. Most people think it's just accidents, or wild animals, or, I don't know, but the truth is, people don't always come back, and the ones that do, they don't always remember what happened, or they remember things that don't make sense. Some of them don't even recognize the camp when they return." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "But why didn't you warn me about this before? Why did you bring me back here?" Jenna looked at me with a mix of regret and something darker, something I couldn't quite place. "Because I needed you here. We need help. We're running out of time." "Out of time for what?" I asked, my pulse quickening. She glanced over her shoulder again, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Every few years, something or someone comes back. We've been trying to hold it off, trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, but it's getting harder. The camp is cursed, in a way. It always has been, but this year feels different. The woods are more active than usual." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The realization that this wasn't just an ordinary camp, that there were forces at play here far beyond anything I'd expected, hit me all at once. "Jenna, what are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you mean, more active? What is it?" She shook her head. "I wish I could explain it, but I can't. All I can tell you is that you need to be careful. Stick to the campgrounds. Stay away from the woods at night. And whatever you do, don't go near the old trail by the lake. That's where it all started." I stood there, trying to process everything she had just said. My head was spinning. Disappearances, cursed woods, something coming back after years of silence. I didn't know what to believe. But one thing was clear. I was caught in something much bigger than myself. And now, I was trapped. I stood frozen, my mind racing as Jenna's words echoed in my head. The woods were more than just a backdrop to a summer camp. They were a place where something unnatural lingered, waiting to take what it could. I had always thought the strange stories around Briarwood were just campfire gossip, rumors passed down by anxious parents and overimaginative kids. But now, in the silence that hung between me and Jenna, I knew it was much more than that. It was real. I wanted to ask her more, to demand answers, but something in the way she avoided my gaze stopped me. She looked like she was carrying a burden, a heavy, painful secret, and I wasn't sure she had the strength to carry it any longer. "I have to go," Jenna said quietly, breaking the silence. "I've said all I can. You're not ready for everything. None of us are." "Jenna, wait," I called after her, but she didn't turn around. She just walked away, disappearing into the woods, like she had something urgent to take care of. I stood there for a long time, unsure of what to do next, but deep down, I knew I had to figure out what was going on, and I wasn't going to wait around for someone else to do it. I had to see the old trail by the lake. It was the one place Jenna had warned me about, the place where it all started. If I was going to uncover the truth, that was where it would be. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the camp. The air was thick with the scent of pine, and the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze seemed too loud in the growing stillness. I grabbed a flashlight from the camp's supply shed, my nerves tightening as I walked toward the path leading to the lake. The moment I stepped onto the trail, the familiar campgrounds faded away behind me. The trees around me grew taller and darker, their branches twisting and turning like skeletal fingers. The silence of the camp was replaced by an eerie hum, like the forest itself was breathing, exhaling something ancient and heavy. Every step felt wrong, as if the ground beneath my feet didn't want me there, but I pushed on, driven by the need to know what had happened to this place. The trail led me deeper into the woods, the underbrush thickening, the trees growing closer together. The path was narrow, barely wide enough for one person to walk comfortably. The further I went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. I could feel the eyes of the forest on me, watching, waiting. Eventually, I came to a clearing. The lake stretched out before me, its surface still and glass-like, reflecting the pale light of the moon. There was a small, decaying dock that jutted out into the water, its wood warped and covered in moss, and standing near the edge of the dock, bathed in moonlight, was something I will never forget. A figure, tall, unmoving, and cloaked in a tattered robe that looked like it had been rotting for years. Its face was hidden beneath the hood, but I could feel its eyes on me, a cold, penetrating gaze that made every hair on my body stand on end. I froze, unable to move, unable to breathe. It was like the air had thickened around me, pressing in from all sides. The figure didn't speak, didn't move, it just stood there, waiting. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice, not from the figure, but from behind me. "Leave, now." I spun around to see a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the woods, their face hidden in the darkness. I couldn't make out who it was, but I knew I didn't want to stay and find out. The voice was low, urgent, with a desperation that I could hear even in the stillness of the night. "Go, before it's too late," the voice repeated, stepping forward slightly. I didn't wait to hear more. My legs moved before my brain could process what was happening. I turned and ran faster than I ever had in my life. The darkness behind me seemed to stretch out, the woods closing in around me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I didn't stop until I was back at the camp, breathless and shaken to the core. I burst into my cabin and locked the door behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. I collapsed onto the bed, gasping for air. The image of the figure by the lake burned into my mind. I tried to tell myself it was just a hallucination, that my mind had been playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. There was something out there, something waiting in the woods, and whatever it wasn't done yet. The next morning, I found the camp nearly deserted. The staff was gone, the buildings empty. The kids, who were supposed to arrive for the summer, never did. It was like the camp had been abandoned overnight. I walked to the lodge, hoping to find anyone, but the doors were locked. I tried calling out to Jenna, but there was no answer. Everything was still, as if the camp had never existed in the first place. The only thing left behind was the old trail by the lake, its darkness swallowing everything in its path. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know if it was some kind of curse or a forgotten evil that haunts the woods, but I do know one thing: Briarwood Camp is not what it seems, and whatever lives in those woods isn't done yet. It's still out there, waiting. And if you ever find yourself near Briarwood, don't listen to the stories, don't believe the warnings, because once you step into the woods, there's no coming back. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts on this terrifying story, and subscribe for more spine-chilling horror tales.